Yep. Hi, and welcome back to another Minute in the Clouds with Greg. And if I have done this correctly, I hope I didn't start a second stream. Having ADHD and a brain injury and all that good stuff, I tend to get mixed up, and that could well have happened. I actually discovered I had posted the same video twice the other day, but anyway. This is day 13 of Minute in the Clouds, and I've been answering questions about ADHD. This is day 4 of doing that. Background: ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, as its full name is. It affects a large number of people across the world, but there's still a lack of understanding and a lot of misconceptions about it. And those misconceptions can, those misconceptions can hinder the support and care of people that need it. So I aim to try and debunk some of the misconceptions in this current series, report on some of the advancements in medication. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a sore throat going on. So if you've not seen the other videos, go ahead and check them out. You can also find articles over on gregscloud.com that go with the videos. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm so very glad that you're here. If you like the videos, consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to be notified when I post more videos, go ahead and click the bell. It's not easy to create when you've got ADHD, brain injury, and other things going on. So any comments, likes, and feedback on how I might make these broadcasts better, or ideas and suggestions, I really would appreciate it. So we'll dive in and continue exploring ADHD, and these have been questions that were asked about ADHD. And the first one is concerning autism spectrum disorder. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a spectrum disorder, meaning that it encompasses a wide range of symptoms and different levels of impairment. Some of the core features of ASD include challenges in social communication and restricted repetitive behaviors. Some people with ASD have difficulty understanding and using nonverbal communication, such as gestures or facial expressions. There can be some behaviors, they call them behaviors of interest. They can be very intense and they take up a lot of time and energy, and they can be very difficult to control. Some common repetitive behaviors experienced by some people with autism are hand flapping, rocking back and forth, maybe spinning objects, or repeating certain words or phrases, making repetitive movements with your body, perhaps. And some common specific other common specific interests. They might have an interest in numbers or letters, the weather, maps, trains, animals. And some people with autism can live quite independently, while others need significant support. There isn't a cure for ASD, but an early diagnosis and intervention can help people learn to grow with ASD. And some of the smartest people I know are on the autism spectrum. Autism spectrum can be diagnosed as early as 18 to 24 months, but usually the signs may be apparent earlier, and the specific signs and symptoms, they vary from person to person. Some of the red flags for that particular thing, show up. So if you want to know more about autism, the Autism Society of America or the National Institute on Mental Health or the CDC have got some great information. So back to the question at hand: is ADHD on the autism spectrum, or is ADHD a form of autism? They're two distinctly different neurodevelopmental conditions, and it's each got its own set of diagnostic criteria and characteristics. They do share some similarities, but they're not the same, and one is not considered a form of the other. While ADHD can affect social interactions and behavior, it doesn't include some of the specific common communication and repetitive patterns that you see in ASD. Although some people may have ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, they are two separate conditions with two diagnoses, but they do share some similarities. Understanding the autism spectrum and the ADHD overlap, they do exhibit, as I said, shared symptoms which can cause some potential confusion and misdiagnosis, and several factors that contribute to that overlap. Both ADHD and ASD may manifest as difficulties in social interactions or communication and attention. And the American Psychiatric Association is a good source for that information. This comorbid condition, it's not uncommon for people to experience ADHD and ASD concurrently, and that makes the diagnosis even more complex. And then there's inattentiveness in autism spectrum disorder. Some people with ASD might develop symptoms of inattention and impulsivity, which can be similar to those that you'll see in ADHD. Misinterpretation of social difficulties. While social challenges are present in both disorders, their nature may differ, leading to potential misinterpretations. In certain cases, ADHD might be identified earlier, with ASD being diagnosed later in life. The developmental variability, symptoms, presentation can vary with age and developmental stage, and that makes it more complicated. To get a proper diagnosis and suitable interventions, a comprehensive evaluation is needed by a trained professional. Some statistics or facts: autism and ADHD coexist with 30 to 80% of children with autism meeting the criteria for ADHD also, and 25 to 50% of children with ADHD meeting the criteria for autism. Scientists are exploring shared biological roots between the two conditions, but conclusive evidence is lacking at this time. Autism and ADHD frequently occur together with common behavioral features such as a language delay, sensory responses, defiant oppositional behavior, difficulty with emotional regulation. And genetic studies show some shared risk factors, but individual genes and variants responsible for both conditions still remain uncertain. Brain imaging studies reveal mixed findings with both shared and different brain alterations in autism and ADHD. Some behaviors that appear similar in both conditions may have different underlying motivating factors or mechanisms, and the best treatment for someone with ADHD and autism is still uncertain. More research is needed to improve therapies and earlier detection. So can you be autistic and have ADHD at the same time? Yes, as I said, more than half of those diagnosed with ASD also have signs of ADHD. Quarter of children with ADHD have low-level signs of ASD, such as difficulties with social skills. Both ADHD and ASD are neurodevelopmental disorders, and brain development's affective. So, yeah. Another question: can animals have ADHD? It's an interesting question, isn't it? ADHD is a mental health condition that has been extensively studied in humans, but it's still unclear or not whether animals can have ADHD. And although animals cannot exhibit complex human behaviors, such as language, their basic functions are similar to ours. That similarity makes animals valuable for studying human disorders, including ADHD. And through those studies, we can gain a better understanding of the disorder, particularly when comparing it to conditions that lack animal models. There's no one definitive answer as to whether or not animals can have ADHD, and we'll look at that further. But there is evidence to suggest that some animals may exhibit symptoms similar to those of ADHD. And one example, some studies have shown that dogs with ADHD might be more likely to fidget and have difficulty paying attention or be impulsive. Kind of interesting, but more research is needed. The role of the nervous system in ADHD, as studied in animals with characteristics of ADHD, they show functional impairments in the dopamine system, and that plays a key role in regulating behaviors. And those impairments can often manifest as decreased dopamine concentrations. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and it acts as a chemical messenger in the brain, and that's believed to influence the behaviors commonly associated with ADHD. Therefore, an impaired dopamine system might result in ADHD type behaviors. And then you've got your neural circuits. Studies have also suggested ADHD may cause alterations to neural circuits within the brain, and those changes could potentially be mirrored in animals, adding another layer of complexity to how the ADHD is studied. Phytostimulants, substances that increase brain activity, so stimulants that increase the brain activity, oftentimes they'll affect the dopamine system and the concentrations of dopamine. But animal models have suggested that these substances might not act on the dopamine transmitter as was expected, and instead they might actually increase serotonin, which thereby will decrease motor activity. Increasing serotonin, motor activity goes down. Brain changes in ADHD, as you know, pertaining to animal studies, the dopamine. The role of dopamine in the brain is very far-reaching. It modulates information transfer between different areas of the brain, and it can influence behavior and aid in the symptomatic reinforcement, shaping how the brain's programming. In ADHD, dopamine dysfunction might contribute to altered reinforcement processes. And then there's norepinephrine, which is another neurotransmitter, and it's hypothesized that the norepinephrine is poorly regulated and overactive in the prefrontal cortex in children that have ADHD, and that neurotransmitter enhances the brain's ability to focus on relevant stimuli and ignore distractions, functions that are often impaired in ADHD. And then your serotonin, another brain chemical. Serotonin is a third neurotransmitter, and it also functions differently in animals, showing ADHD characteristics. Some studies suggest that serotonin content and serotonin's influence on behavior could be altered in these animals. And then there's glutamate. Glutamate is another key neurotransmitter, and glutamate interacts with both dopamine and norepinephrine. And glutamate helps regulate the concentration of dopamine in the brain, and its effects might be different in animals with ADHD type behavior. So the conclusion to that would be exploration of ADHD in animals. It can offer unique insights into the neurobiology of the disorder, but while animals don't perfectly mirror human ADHD, their nervous systems are very similar, and allow researchers to identify key neurobiological changes related to ADHD. Knowledge is vital not only for understanding the disorder, but for developing new treatments. National Library of Medicine's got some great information on that. And in that vein of, can animals have ADHD? Can dogs have ADHD? Well, dogs can't be diagnosed with ADHD in the same way that humans can, but they can display symptoms that are similar to those that are seen in humans. And the symptoms are often classified under broader category of canine hyperactivity or canine hyperskinesis disorder, or CHD. Evidence from research studies, prevalences of risk factors among a cohort of dogs. Some experimental research study found certain breeds of dogs, such as terriers, had higher rates of hyperactivity symptoms. Some potential ethical implications with that: selective breeding of dogs for hyperactivity might have welfare implications for those dogs. Journal of Veterinary Behavior has some great information. Canine hyperactivity versus human ADHD. The concept of ADHD in dogs is quite controversial because the human condition requires symptoms to be present in multiple settings, like work, home, and school. And since dogs don't have the same environmental experiences that humans have, the translation of ADHD diagnosis is not directly applicable. Some statistics on that. The exact prevalence isn't well documented due to varying definitions and methodologies of study relating to ADHD in dogs. Approximately 0.5 to 3% of dogs might exhibit symptoms of hyperactivity. Higher rates reported in certain breeds, as I said, such as your terriers, Jack Russells, suggest breed-specific predisposition to ADHD type symptoms. Psychology Today has got a great article called "Do Dogs Get ADHD?" Impacts on dogs and the human companions relating to that. Hyperactivity in dogs can have several consequences. It can make it difficult for them to be trained. Hyperactive dogs might struggle to focus during training sessions, and increased stress both for the dog and the human companion. Those symptoms can cause a stressful situation. There's a potential for physical harm. Uncontrolled hyperactivity can lead to accidents. So kind of summing that bit up, yeah, while dogs can't be clinically diagnosed with ADHD, they can exhibit similar symptoms which can impact their quality of life and the relationships between them and humans. And finally, following on from that, can cats have ADHD? Just the same as with dogs, cats can't be diagnosed with ADHD the same as humans can be diagnosed with ADHD, but they can exhibit behaviors similar to ADHD symptoms. It's often characterized as feline hyperactivity, hyperskinesis. Research studies and evidence. The study of feline hyperphanesia syndrome with self-trauma to the tail. A retrospective study of 7 cases and proposal for integrated multidisciplinary research. What they examined a related condition in felines which exhibits hyperactivity and restlessness. There's some ethics with that. A good understanding of the behavioral disorders is critical for ensuring the welfare of cats. And symptoms similar to ADHD in cats. Cats might display symptoms such as high energy levels, distractibility, restlessness, difficulty calming down. Some of the implications for cats and human counterparts. Hyperactivity in cats can make it a challenge in any training. Cats might struggle to focus during training sessions, increased stresses for the cat and the human. And then potential physical harm if there's uncontrolled hyperactivity could lead to accidents or self-harm. As far as statistics, the prevalence of feline hyperactivity it's not well documented, largely due to inconsistencies in the definition and lack of a comprehensive research approach. And it's considered relatively rare, but there isn't, exact numbers available. So yeah, while cats can't clinically be diagnosed with ADHD, they can exhibit symptoms which are quite similar, which will affect their well-being and relationships. And finally, very strange question, and I don't know why someone would ask it, but they actually did. I went and did some research of questions that people have asked. Can goats have ADHD? That's oh wow, because everyone needs to know if their goat has ADHD, right? But anyway, nevertheless, similar to dogs and cats, goats can't clinically be diagnosed with ADHD, same as a human, but they can manifest behaviors that resemble hyperactivity or restlessness. Commonly, that's attributed to environmental factors or other health issues. Research, studies, evidence. To my last knowledge, certainly to my last research, there wasn't any specific information conducted for ADHD type symptoms in goats. So yeah, although not labeled ADHD, goats might demonstrate similar symptoms. I guess they could show high energy levels, restlessness, rapid changes in behavior. Some of the potential causes of hyperactivity in goats, it's essential to consider possible causes that contribute to that. What's those that might be causing symptoms similar to ADHD. Nutrition, inadequate nutrition. Goats require a balanced diet to maintain proper behavioral health. Their diet can affect them. Insufficient exercise, lack of physical activity, that could lead to restlessness in anyone, in any species, really. Illness, certain health conditions could provoke hyperactive type behavior. And implications, for hyperactivity in goats, it could present challenges in handling. A hyperactive goat might be hard to manage, especially maybe in a farming context. Increased stress for the goat, and human companions. Potential for physical harm. Uncontrolled hyperactivity could lead to accidents. So yeah, concluding that goats can't be clinically diagnosed with ADHD, but goats can exhibit symptoms similar to ADHD. And there you have it. Now you know. So yeah, these behaviors are typically linked to other factors such as diet. Diet's a big thing in goats. Well, it's happened again. You've wasted a perfectly good however many minutes this was. As my favorite podcasters, Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers, would say. I hope that you enjoyed the content today. I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, remember, take care of your mind. Thank you. Bye.